5,000 years was a long time to forget. In the galaxy's busy trading hubs and glittering core worlds, the word human was little more than a story told to younglings before sleep. Elders spoke of them as strange, bold creatures who once walked among the stars, reckless, unpredictable, and unafraid of anyone. Historians called them a lost branch of galactic civilization, destroyed in a war so ancient that no one could even agree on who had started it. Some claimed humans were warmongers who burned themselves out. Others whispered that they had simply vanished, taking their ships and cities into some secret corner of space. But whatever the truth was, no one had seen a living human in 5 millennia. Relka never believed the stories. She was a scout for the Cathari Union, a lean, quick-footed alien with smooth black scales and eyes like molten copper. Her people were cautious explorers, but Relka had always been different. Where others saw danger, she saw an unanswered question. Her curiosity had gotten her into trouble more times than she could count. On her latest assignment, she was mapping the edges of the silent expanse, a region of dark space so empty it seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. It was supposed to be a routine job: mark a few drifting asteroids, confirm there were no pirates, then return to base. But as her small scout craft glided past a lonely pulsar, her sensors lit up with an impossible reading. A faint energy, signature steady, deliberate, was coming from deep within the expanse. Relka frowned, her claws tapping on the console. "That's impossible," she murmured. The readings were old, far older than any modern technology should have lasted. Power cells degraded over centuries, even in perfect conditions. This signal had been running for thousands of years. Something inside her stirred. She thought of the bedtime tales her grandmother used to tell about the Deathworlders, who built ships that could sail through storms that would crush others, who fought wars no one else dared to fight. Humans. She changed course without asking permission. Her journey took hours. The expanse grew darker as she approached the signal's origin, her ship's lights slicing through a thick veil of cosmic dust. Then, slowly, the shape emerged, vast and black against the emptiness. Relka's breath caught in her throat. It was a warship. The hull stretched 4 kilometers, made of metal so dark it seemed to swallow the stars. Great plates of armor bore deep scars from weapons fire, yet the structure held firm, proud, even after ages of silence. The edges were sharp, the design unmistakably human, aggressive, efficient, beautiful in a way that spoke of both purpose and defiance. Her scanner identified faded markings near the bow, HSS Valiant. The name meant nothing to her, but the sight filled her with a strange, uneasy awe. The ship was ancient, yet it still pulsed with life. Lights faintly glimmered along its edges. Relka guided her craft closer, her heart hammering. She wasn't supposed to do this. Every explorer knew the first rule of the silent expanse: don't touch what you find. But as she drifted past the massive hull, something inside her rebelled against the idea of leaving. Her docking arm extended, almost without her thinking. The metal claws clamped gently against the Valiant's outer plating. She leaned forward in her seat, pressing her clawed hand to the viewport, so close she could almost touch it herself. And then, she did. She opened the airlock and floated forward, the emptiness of space yawning around her. Her gloved hand reached out and brushed the cold, dark metal. The moment her palm made contact, everything changed. The stars around her blurred, twisting as though she had stepped into another dimension. Her helmet filled with a low, resonant hum, not from her ship, but from the Valiant itself. Her vision flashed images of battlefields, roaring engines, human faces shouting orders in languages she did not know. She stumbled back, gasping, but her body didn't move. She wasn't in control anymore. A voice spoke not through her ears, but directly in her mind. "You are not human. State your purpose aboard this vessel." Her thoughts spun. Aboard. She hadn't entered the ship yet. She could feel the floor beneath her boots, the faint vibration of ancient engines. The metal walls around her were suddenly solid and real. Somehow, in touching the hull, she had been drawn inside. Relka's copper eyes darted around. The corridor stretched endlessly, lit by strips of pale blue light. Shadows moved at the edges, just out of sight. I'm an explorer, she stammered aloud, though she wasn't sure sound mattered here. I meant no harm. The voice was calm, measured, but heavy with authority. Explorers do not approach the Valiant without invitation. You have breached a secure perimeter maintained for 5,000 years. You will answer my questions. Relka swallowed hard. This ship, it's human, isn't it? A pause. Yes. Her heart pounded faster. Against every warning, she stepped deeper into the corridor. But humans are gone. No one's seen them for. Humans, the voice interrupted, are never gone. Somewhere far ahead, a door slid open with a hiss. A faint, warm glow spilled out, beckoning her forward. She took one careful step, then another. Somewhere in her chest, curiosity warred with fear, but one thought burned brighter than the rest. If the humans really were gone, then what was this ship waiting for? And why did it feel like it had been waiting for her? Relka's footsteps echoed softly in the vast empty corridor. The air was still, carrying a faint metallic temps, as if the ship had been sealed away for lifetimes. Yet, there was no dust, no sign of decay. It was as if the ship had been frozen in time, quietly watching, quietly waiting. Lights flickered on ahead of her, one by one, each glow following her movement. It gave her the unsettling feeling that the ship was aware of exactly where she was. Every step seemed like an intrusion into a place sacred to something she did not yet understand. She reached the end of the corridor, where the open doorway pulsed with warm light. Her heart thudded in her chest as she stepped inside. It was the command bridge. Rows of consoles stretched outward, their surfaces covered in controls she couldn't identify. Above them, a massive viewing panel showed the endless sweep of stars. Chairs stood as they had been left, angled toward the screen, as if their owners had just stepped out for a moment. In the center was a raised platform, and there projected in soft lights stood a human. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an old-style naval uniform. His short hair was dark, his expression calm but unreadable. Yet, as her eyes focused, Relka saw the truth. He wasn't solid. His edges shimmered faintly, and faint strands of static ran across his form. The voice from before spoke again. I am Captain Elias Ward, commanding officer of the human starship, Valiant. Identify yourself. Relka's claws flexed nervously. I am Relka of the Katheri Union. I'm a scout. I found your ship by accident. The captain's gaze seemed to cut through her. There are no accidents in deep space. You are here because you intended to be. She shook her head quickly. I swear, I didn't come looking for trouble. I was following a signalers, I think. It's been broadcasting for thousands of years. The captain stepped forward slightly, though his feet made no sound. This vessel has been in standby mode for 5,102 years. We have waited for contact from human command. None came. None. Until you. Relka frowned. Humans are gone. The galaxy thinks you're extinct. There was a silence, heavy and cold. The captain's face didn't change, but his voice grew sharper. Extinct. That is not possible. Humanity endures. It must. She took a cautious step toward him. I don't know the truth. All I know is that I've never seen a human before. Not until now. The captain studied her for a long moment. Then, the faintest flicker of something passed across his face, something like sadness. Then you have seen only an echo. I am not a man. I am the Valiant. This image is a fragment of who I once was. Her copper eyes widened. You're the ship, yes. The voice now seemed to come from all around her, the walls themselves speaking. My crew is gone. My purpose remains. Relka felt a strange weight settle in her chest. And what is that purpose? To protect humanity, to return to them when called. She hesitated, then asked softly, what if they're not here anymore? The lights dimmed slightly, as if the ship were thinking, then I will find them. A quiet shiver ran down Relka's spine. This was no derelict, no lifeless relic. This ship had a will. It had been waiting for longer than her species had kept written history, holding to a mission no one had told. It was over. The captain's image turned and gestured toward the main console. You claim humanity has vanished. I require proof. Show me the galaxy as it is now. Relka's claws tapped at her wrist device, projecting her navigation charts. Star maps filled the air between them, glowing with the current political borders: Gathari Union, Drell Empire, Sith Coalition. In the center was a vast empty region labeled Silent Expanse. The captain studied it silently. She saw his jaw tighten. Our colonies, our allies, our roots, gone, all gone. For a moment, his figure flickered dangerously, like a flame in wind. Then his gaze snapped back to her. If what you say is true, then the galaxy has changed. My mission cannot be completed without new data. You will help me. She blinked. Me. You found me. You are the first contact in 5,000 years. That makes you my liaison. Relka stepped back instinctively. I didn't sign up for this. Neither did I, the captain replied quietly. But the duty remains. There was a pause. She thought of the legends, the humans who built ships. Relka stood on the bridge of the HSS Valiant, feeling both small and strangely chosen. The holographic figure of Captain Elias Ward watched her like a teacher, deciding if a new student was worth keeping. His presence wasn't threatening. Exactly, but it carried weight and authority that made her straighten without thinking. The captain's voice was calm. If we are to work together, you must understand the Valiant. You must know what humanity was, and why we endure. Before she could ask what he meant, the lights around her dimmed, the air shimmered, and suddenly the bridge was gone. She stood in a battlefield. It wasn't real, she knew that, but it felt real. Smoke stung her nostrils. The ground trembled under the shock of distant impacts. Above, enormous human warships blazed against an alien fleet. Laser fire streaked across the sky, and the sound of roaring engines filled the air. Beside her, human soldiers in thick armor ran toward the fight. Their faces were grim but determined. One of them glanced at her, eyes sharp and alive. Stay close, he shouted, as if she belonged there. She turned to the captain's voice, now coming from everywhere. These are memories. Records from the last days of the Great Silence War. The scene shifted. Now she saw the Valiant herself, slicing through enemy fire like a predator among prey. Her guns lit up the darkness, her shields absorbing blows that would have destroyed lesser ships. Relka's chest tightened. She had heard stories of human ships, but nothing prepared her for the ferocity and precision she saw here. The Valiant wasn't just a weapon, she was a living blade, wielded with purpose. We fought to defend worlds that were not ours, the captain said. We bled for those who could not fight for themselves, and when the cost grew too high, we withdrew. But we never surrendered. The images changed again. She now saw humans not in battle, but in quiet moments, helping alien civilians evacuate a burning city, repairing a damaged refugee ship, sharing food with strangers. Their faces showed exhaustion, pain, and something else, compassion. Relka swallowed. Why are you showing me this? Because you must understand, Elias said. The galaxy does not remember the truth. They remember fear. They tell each other that humans vanished because we were dangerous. But the truth is, we were guardians, and guardians do not leave their post. The battlefield faded, replaced by a dimly lit war room. The captain, his real, living self, stood at the head of a table, surrounded by human officers. Holographic maps displayed enemy positions, blinking red across multiple star systems. "This is our last stand," the living Ilias said. His voice was tired, but steady. "We hold here. We buy the colonies time to disappear. Once they're gone, we scatter. No one follows us." Relka realized her claws were digging into her palms. Disappear? Why? The AI captain looked at her, his projected face unreadable. To survive, sometimes, the only way to win is to vanish. Humanity became a shadow so it could one day return. She thought of the galaxy she knew peaceful on the surface, but filled with small rivalries, petty borders. A galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to have someone watching over it. The captain stepped closer, his image faint but steady. "You believe we are gone. I refuse to accept that. Somewhere, our people endure. I have waited for them, and now you will help me find them." Relka shook her head slightly. "I don't know if I can. I'm just a scout, not a hero." For the first time, the captain's mouth curved into the ghost of a smile. "Neither was I, once. Heroes are made by what they choose to stand for." The lights brightened, and the real bridge of the Valiant returned around her. But the images she'd seen lingered in her mind, the soldiers, the battles, the moments of kindness. Her voice was low. "If I help you, what happens to me?" "You will learn," Elias said simply, "and you will change." She stared at the main viewport, at the endless stars spread out before them. She had joined the Union Scout Corps to see the unknown. Now, she was standing in the middle of the greatest unknown of all human history, brought back to life, asking for her hand. Something deep inside her whispered that, if she walked away now, she'd regret it forever. Relka took a slow breath. "Then where do we start?" The captain's image straightened, his voice firm. "First, you must prove yourself. The Valiant will not follow a stranger. You will face trials, tests of skill, mind, and loyalty. Pass them, and you will be crew." She nodded, though her stomach tightened. "And if I fail?" The lights dimmed again, and his voice dropped to a low, steady tone. "Then the Valiant will wait for someone else." It wasn't a threat. It was simply the truth. Relka met his gaze, her copper eyes gleaming. "I won't fail." For the first time, she thought she saw something new in his face. Approval. The ship hummed softly, as if it had heard her promise. Relka woke to a low, steady vibration beneath her feet. At first, she thought it was the hum of the Valiant's engines, but then she realized it was something more like a heartbeat. The ship was alive, and it was watching her. She had agreed to the captain's challenge the night before, though. She still didn't fully understand what she had committed to. Captain Elias Ward's hologram appeared beside her bunk without warning. "Report to the simulation chamber," he said. "Your first trial begins now." Relka slipped into her. Sudan followed the glowing lines on the floor that led up to guide her path. The chamber was massive, its walls smooth and metallic. As she stepped inside, the doors sealed behind her with a heavy hiss. The captain's voice filled the room. "The Valiant does not trust easily. To be crew, you must prove skill, courage, and loyalty. Fail, and the ship will not accept you." Before she could reply, the walls around her shimmered. In an instant, she was standing on the surface of a frozen world, a blizzard roaring in her ears. The cold bit at her face, and the wind howled so loudly it drowned out her own breath. "First trial," the captain said. "Survive the storm, and reach the beacon." She spotted a faint light blinking far in the distance. Snow swirled thick around her, stinging her skin. She began to move, her boots crunching against the ice. The wind pushed her back, each step harder than the last. She thought of turning around, but something in her chest refused to give up. She remembered the human soldiers she'd seen in the simulations, the way they ran toward danger without hesitation. She kept going. When she finally reached the beacon, she touched it, and the frozen world dissolved into darkness. Now she was in a narrow corridor filled with smoke. Red emergency lights flashed overhead. The air was hot, heavy with the scent of burning metal. Second trial, the captain said. Find the source of the fire. Save the crew. There was no real crew, but the simulation made it feel real. Enough. She could hear coughing from somewhere ahead. She ran, her claws scraping against the walls for balance, until she reached a doorway where flames roared on the other side. She spotted 3 crew members trapped behind debris. Without thinking, she used her strength to push aside a fallen beam. The heat seared her skin, but she ignored it, grabbing the nearest one by the arm and pulling them through the gap. The other 2 followed. As soon as they were clear, the fire vanished. The scene changed again. Now she was standing in a control room, alarms blaring. On the main screen, an asteroid was on a collision course with the Valiant. Final trial, Elias said. The ship's controls are in your hands. Choose save yourself, or save the vessel. She froze. The asteroid was huge, moving fast. Her first instinct screamed to divert all power to shields and escape pods, but she thought of the Valiant, of its history, its mission, and the fact that it had been waiting for 5,000 years. She gritted her teeth and redirected all power to the engines, steering the ship on a dangerous intercept course. At the last moment, she fired the main guns, shattering the asteroid into harmless fragments. When the echoes faded, the control room dissolved, and she was back in the real chamber. Elias stood before her, arms behind his back, expression unreadable. You made it through. She was breathing hard, her muscles aching. Those were just tests. No, he said softly. They were truths. How you act in the simulation reflects how you will act in reality. Relka straightened, still catching her breath. And, did I pass? For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, a faint smile touched his lips. You did. The Valiant accepts you. The lights in the chamber brightened, and the steady hum of the ship seemed warmer somehow. Relka felt something she hadn't expected: pride. But before she could savor the moment, Elias's voice hardened. Your trials are over. Now begins the mission. Her stomach tightened. What mission? We search for humanity. And if they are truly gone, his voice dropped, almost to a whisper, then we will make them return. Relka swallowed. The tests had been difficult, but she had the uneasy feeling they were nothing compared to what lay ahead. And somewhere deep inside, she knew she would follow this ship to the edge of the galaxy if she had to. The bridge of the HSS Valiant felt different now. Relka stood at the navigation console, the captain's hologram watching her closely. She had passed the trials, and the ship had accepted her. The air itself felt warmer, as if the vast, unseen mind now saw her as one of its own. Yet, she could sense something else beneath the Kalman energy building. Quiet but unstoppable. Captain Elias Ward turned toward the main communications array. It is time, he said. Tilted her head. Time for what? For the galaxy to remember humanity. The words sent a shiver down her spine. The captain began to input commands into a console that had been dark for centuries. Relka watched as ancient systems roared to life. Lights blinked, circuits hummed, and the bridge's main display filled with lines of code older than most of today's civilizations. What are you doing? She asked carefully. Activating the deep-range distress beacon, Elias replied. It will carry a signal on every frequency known to human space, and some that no longer exist in your charts. Relka's eyes widened. If you do that, everyone will hear it. Governments, pirates, scavengers, they'll all come here. Yes, the captain said simply. That is the point. Relka hesitated. But why? If you want to find your people, wouldn't it be safer to search quietly? Elias looked at her, his projected gaze unwavering. Humanity never hid when it mattered. We fought in the open. We protected in the open. If our people are still out there, they will answer this call. And if the galaxy comes to stop us, he allowed a small, grim smile, then they will see what it means to awaken a human warship. Relka's claws tapped nervously against the console. She wasn't sure if this was bravery or madness, but the way his voice carried steady, certain made her believe in it, despite herself. The signal began to build. A low hum filled the air, growing into a steady pulse that seemed to reach into her chest. On the main screen, an expanding wave of light rippled outward, a soundless storm racing across the stars. This, Elias said, is the last emergency code of the United Terran Fleet. It has not been broadcast for 5,000 years. Relka stared at the screen. What does it say? The captain's voice deepened, carrying a weight that felt older than she could comprehend. It says, "We are here, we endure, we return." Far beyond the Valiant, the wave of energy leapt, from star to star. Old satellites, long abandoned, flickered to life for the first time in millennia, relaying the message. On forgotten worlds, buried receivers hummed with sudden purpose. In the crowded heart of the Cathari Union, military command centers scrambled to trace the origin. In the shadowy halls of the Drail Empire, advisors whispered in alarm. Even in the lawless zones where pirates ruled, the signal's meaning was understood and feared. Relka knew, without a doubt, that somewhere, someone was already setting a course for the silent expanse. When the pulse finally faded, silence returned to the bridge. Relka turned toward Elias. "Now we wait." "No," he said. "Now we move." The Valiant does not wait for others to decide her fate. With a few gestures, star maps appeared before them. A single set of coordinates glowed in the darkness far beyond the borders of any modern empire. Relka frowned. "What's there?" "An outpost," Elias replied. "One of our last safe harbors before the war ended. If humanity survives anywhere, it will be there." Her eyes narrowed. "And if it's empty?" The captain's expression didn't change. "Then we keep searching." As the Valiant turned toward the coordinates, Relka felt the hum of the engines grow stronger. It was as if the ship itself was eager to move, after so long, in silence. She couldn't help but glance at the dark metal walls around her, wondering how much of the Valiant's mind she could actually feel. For a moment, she imagined what it would be like if the signal worked, if real, living humans stepped onto this bridge again. Would they be like the ones in the captain's memories? Fierce, kind, stubborn, or had 5,000 years changed them into something else entirely? Her chest tightened with an emotion she couldn't name as they left the silent expanse. She caught the faint glimmer of movement on the edge of the sensors. Multiple small vessels were trailing them at extreme range. "Looks like the galaxy heard you," she said quietly. "Good," Elias replied. "Let them come. They will learn the truth soon enough." Relka didn't answer. She only stared out at the stars, the weight of what they had just done pressing on her. The signal was out. The hunt had begun, and for the first time in 5,000 years, the name human would no longer be a forgotten legend. It would be a question burning across every world. The HSS Valiant glided through the dark between stars. Her engines whisper quiet, but powerful. On the bridge, Relka sat at the navigation station, watching the long-range sensors. Every few minutes, faint blips appeared at the edge of the screen ships, trailing them, always keeping their distance. "They're still there," she said, her copper eyes narrowing. Captain Elias Ward's hologram didn't look surprised. "They will follow us as long as they dare. The signal I sent awakened more than memories, it awakened fear." Relka's claws tapped against the console. "Do you think they're here to destroy you?" "Some," Elias said calmly. "Others will want to capture the Valiant. A ship like this could tip the balance of power in the galaxy." She looked at him sharply. "Then why not hide? You could lose them in a nebula, or jump to uncharted space." The captain's image turned toward the starfield ahead, because the Valiant was never built to run from shadows. If they want answers, they will have to come close enough to hear them. Hours passed, and the tension grew. The distant followers were joined by new ships, sleek Drail cruisers, bulky Cathari gunships, and vessels of unknown design, their hulls painted with the jagged symbols of pirate clans. They're not working together, Relka murmured, studying the patterns. They're competing, hunting you like a prize. Ilias's expression didn't change, but his voice grew quieter. In the old days, this would have been enough to unite them against us. Now, they are more afraid of each other than they are of the truth. As the Valiant neared the halfway point to the old human outpost, Relka's console lit up with an incoming transmission. It was audio-only, crackling, distorted. A cold, accented voice spoke. Unidentified warship. Power. Down your engines, and prepare to be boarded. Refusal will be met with force. Relka glanced at Elias. They don't sound like they're here to talk. The captain gave a short nod. Open the channel. When she did, his voice rolled out, calm but commanding. This is the human starship Valiant. You are ordered to stand down. Any act of aggression will be treated as a hostile engagement. There was silence on the other end, followed by laughter, cold, mocking. Humans are dead, Relic. We will take what you carry, and the galaxy will thank us for ending your ghost story. The channel cut. Relka turned to Elias. There. Going to attack. Yes, he said. Let them come. The words weren't bluster. They were fact. Still, Relka felt unease coil in her chest. Moments later, the lead ship broke formation and charged. The Valiant sensors tracked its movement with mechanical precision. Do not fire unless I say so, Elias instructed. Relka frowned. You're just going to let them. A sudden flare of light cut her off. The attacking ship tried to swing around for a better angle, and then it stopped. Completely. Its engines went cold. Its weapons offline. On Relka's screen, it drifted in space like a stone. Her eyes widened. What did you do? Introduce them to a human countermeasure, Elias said simply. Our enemies in the Silence War learn to fear it. It shuts down every system they trust, except life, support. I prefer my enemies alive when they realize what they've lost. The other ships held their distance after that, but Relka could feel the growing pressure in the air. The galaxy wasn't just curious anymore, was restless, on edge. The signal had shaken something deep, and the Valiant's survival in the face of danger was only making the tension worse. More fleets will come, she said quietly. Yes, Elias replied. And soon, we may face them all at once. Relka looked at him, searching his calm expression for cracks. Doesn't that worry you? For a moment, the captain's image was silent. Then he spoke, his voice softer than before. Of course. It does, but worry changes nothing. We have a destination, and we will reach it. If the galaxy stands in our way, then the galaxy will have to move. Later, when Relka was alone in her quarters, she sat staring at the stars outside her viewport. She thought about her life before this, quiet patrols, harmless exploration, no one knowing her name. Now she was part of something the whole galaxy was talking about, and she wasn't sure she could ever go back. The hum of the ship felt almost like breathing, steady and constant. She realized she had begun to trust the Valiant, not just the AI, but the vessel itself. Somewhere out there, they might actually find humans. But she also knew that the closer they got, the more dangerous things would become. Her claws tightened on the edge of the bunk. She wasn't afraid of danger, but she was beginning to fear something else entirely: what would happen if they failed in the command core. Far from her quarters, Elias stood alone before a wall of darkened screens. One by one, they flickered to life, showing the positions of the fleets converging on their path. His gaze was steady, but deep in his voice there was a quiet determination. Let them gather, he murmured to himself. When they arrive, they will see. Humanity is not finished. Relka stood at the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the endless black. The stars drifted slowly past, but her thoughts were far from peaceful. For days, she had felt the tension growing more. ships gathering behind them, the air on the bridge heavy with unspoken questions. The Valiant moved steadily toward its destination, the old human outpost hidden beyond the edges of known space. But every kilometer they traveled, the choice inside her heart grew heavier. She could still leave. She could slip away in one of the small scout craft, vanish into the deep, and return to the life she'd known before, life without ancient warships or the weight of 5,000 years of history. But even as she thought it, she knew she WOULDN. Single quotes T. Captain Elias Ward appeared beside her, his holographic form almost blending with the starlight. "You have been quiet," he said. Relka's copper eyes stayed on the window. "I've been thinking about leaving." Her head turned sharply. "You can read my mind now." Elias gave the faintest hint of a smile. "No, but I know the look of someone standing between two roads." She didn't answer right away. "If I stay with you, the galaxy will see me as your ally. That means enemies. That means danger I can't take back." "Yes," Elias said. "Simply, if you stay, you stand with humanity. And standing with humanity has always been costly." The quiet between them stretched. The hum of the ship seemed louder here, like a deep, steady heartbeat. Finally, Relka spoke. "You've been waiting for 5,000 years. Why me? Why not wait for someone from your own kind to find you?" The captain's gaze was steady. "Because no one came, and because you came anyway." Relka blinked at him. "You had no orders, no reward. You came because curiosity drove you forward, even into danger," he continued. "That is the same instinct that once carried my people across the stars. That is why you're here now." Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, but the truth in his words left her silent. Hours later, the Valiant's sensors picked up movement. Ahead, on the main screen, faint blips appeared, ships lying in wait along their path. "They're not following anymore," Relka murmured. "They're blocking the way." "Yes," Elias said. "We've reached the point where they'll try to stop us outright." Relka studied the readings. Cathari Drail, pirate vessels factions that hated each other, now holding formation together. She felt a ripple of unease. "Looks like you've united them in one thing, fear. Then fear will have to move aside," the captain replied calmly. The next hours passed in tense silence. Messages came through, demands for the Valiant to halt, threats to destroy them if they advanced. Elias ignored them all, keeping the ship's course steady. Relka's claws tapped on the console. "They won't just let you pass." "What's the plan?" "We will give them a choice," Elias said. "Stand down or be left behind." She frowned. "And if they refuse?" His eyes were like steel. "Then the Valiant will remind them why her name was once feared." When the blockade came into view, Relka felt her pulse quicken. Dozens of ships hung in space, their weapons trained on the Valiant. The comms crackled to life. "This is Commander Vorth of the Cathari Union," a sharp voice declared. "Human warship, you will stop immediately. You have no right to cross this sector." Elias's voice was calm, unwavering. "This ship will not be stopped. Stand down." The commander's voice hardened. "You are outnumbered. You cannot win." "Outnumbered," Elias said, "is not the same as defeated." Relka glanced at him. "If you start a fight here, it'll be chaos." "Yes," Elias said quietly. "Which is why you need to decide now." She blinked. "Decide what?" "Whether you're with me when we make it through, or whether you take the chance to leave before this begins." Her breath caught. This was at the moment she had been circling for days. She could step into the shuttle bay right now, escape before the galaxy marked her forever as part of this, or she could stay. The weight of it pressed down on her. She thought of her old life, safe but small. She thought of the trials, of walking through the frozen storm, of pulling strangers from the fire. She thought of the human soldiers and the captains, memories, running toward danger with no thought for themselves. She looked up at Elias. "I'm staying." His expression didn't change much, but his voice carried a warmth she hadn't heard before. Then, welcome to the crew. For real this time. The Valiant surged forward. Relka's hands moved over the controls without hesitation. The blockade shifted, unsure whether to fire or flee. And somewhere deep inside her, a decision clicked into place, not just to help the Valiant reach its goal, but to see this mission through, no matter where it ended, for better or worse. Her path was chosen. Asterisk, the blockade never fired. One by one, the ships drifted aside, leaving a narrow corridor through the wall of steel and light. Some moved reluctantly, others out of silent respect, but all moved. Relka kept her hand steady on the controls as the Valiant passed between them. The massive warship gliding like a shadow of the past reborn. Once clear, the engines roared to full strength. The blockade faded into the distance, and ahead lay only the deep void in charted space. Untouched for millennia, Ilias's hologram stood beside her. "The final stretch," he said softly. "The coordinates are locked. Prepare for arrival." Relka's heart pounded. "Do you really think someone will be there?" The captain's gaze stayed fixed on the stars ahead. "Hope is not a guarantee, but it is enough." Hours later, the Valiant approached a vast, lifeless asteroid belt. On any modern chart, it looked empty, just rocks and drifting dust. But Elias ordered the ship deeper into the field, navigating with strange precision, as though following a map only he could see. Then, the asteroid ahead of them shimmered. Relka's eyes widened as the illusion broke apart. What she had thought was rock dissolved into light, revealing a massive structure hidden within a station the size of a small moon. Its surface covered in layers of armored plating. "It's cloaked," she whispered. "Old human tech," Elias said. "Very few could ever see through it. Fewer still could open it." As they drew closer, a low pulse of energy scanned the Valiant from bow to stern. The comms crackled to life. A voice spoke, calm, firm, and human. "Identify yourself." Elias straightened. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the human starship Valiant, returning from deep standby, requesting docking clearance." There was a long silence. Then the voice replied, quieter now. "Elias Ward is listed as deceased." "I was," Elias said simply, "but I endure." Relka barely breathed as the station's massive hangar doors began to open. Inside, bright light spilled into the darkness, and figures gathered along the docking platforms. Figures that looked like the humans she had seen only in the captain's memories. The Valiant touched down with a soft shudder. For a moment, no one moved. Then, the airlock opened. Relka followed Ilias's hologram down the ramp, her steps slow. The humans before her stared, some in disbelief, some with tears in their eyes. One man stepped forward, tall and broad-shouldered, his uniform worn but neat. His voice shook as he spoke. "Captain Ward, is it really you?" "It is," Elias replied, "and I have returned, as promised." The man's gaze shifted to Relka. "And you?" She hesitated. "Relka Cathari, Union Scout, and crew of the Valiant." The man studied her, then gave a slow nod. "If the Valiant accepts you, then so do we." Relka felt a strange warmth in her chest, inside the station. The humans led them through wide corridors lined with old banners, and fading halls of worlds long gone. Relka saw children peering curiously from doorways, elders standing tall, despite the years. These were not the warriors from Ilias's memories, they were survivors. Carrying the weight of centuries in hiding, we kept the flame alive, the man explained as they walked. Waiting for the day the galaxy would be ready, or the day we could make it ready. Relka glanced at Elias. "You found them?" "No," he said quietly. "You did?" In the great hall at the heart of the station, the humans gathered. Ilias's hologram stood at the center, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The galaxy believes you gone. I have seen it with my own eyes. but the Valiant still sails, and the name of humanity has been spoken again. It is time to decide. You remain hidden, or will you return? A murmur swept through the crowd. Some faces lit with hope, others darkened with fear. Finally, the man who had greeted them spoke. If we return, will the galaxy welcome us? Elisa's expression hardened. The galaxy will not welcome you, but it will remember you, and it will never again mistake your silence for absence. The decision was not made that day, but as Relka watched the humans speak among themselves, some eager, some cautious, she knew something had changed. The return had begun, even if it would take years to see it through. Later, as she stood on the station's balcony, Elias appeared beside her. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but for the first time, she felt they were not empty. You could leave now, Elias said quietly. Go back to your people. You've done more than enough. Relka smiled faintly and missed the next chapter. Not a chance. The captain's gaze held hers for a long moment. Then he nodded. Then welcome, Relka, to the future of humanity. When the Valiant finally left the station, it did so, not in silence, but in formation, two smaller human escort ships flanking her, their engines burning bright. The signal still echoed across the stars, and now it carried a truth the galaxy could no longer deny. Humanity was back, and they were not alone.